It's June and it's suddenly a lot warmer and a lot brighter in my home. And that means there's always something to be done with my plants. I've noticed big changes with my plants, some good and some not so good. And we're going to tackle it all in this video. Now that the warm weather has finally arrived, I've noticed a massive change in how quickly my plants are drying out, and it's caught me out recently. So just last week I did a houseplant tour for my Patreon subscribers, details of which are in the description by the way, and I was going around showing all my plants and I came to my coleus plant that was looking like it was on death's door. So I hadn't given him a drink in only 3 or 4 days and it was really droopy. Now the coleus plants does tend to need water more often than most of my other plants, but I was quite shocked in how droopy he was. But thankfully, the great thing about coleus is how quickly they respond to a good watering. They always bounce back, similar to a peace lily. So I gave him a good thorough drink. Feels like he already needs a drink now actually. Gave him a good thorough drink and he's perked right up. But there's a couple of other plants in that video that weren't so lucky that I need to sort out. One of which is this caladium here. So this guy was really droopy because I hadn't given him a water in a few days. And he has bounced back since giving him a drink, but there's a few leaves that have gone yellow, gone a bit by the wayside. So I tend to water my plants on the weekend, once a week, but it looks like for a few of my plants I might have to up that to twice a week maybe. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to prune back some of these leaves that are looking a bit shabby now that I've kind of upset him by not watering them enough. Okay, so it's looking a bit tidier now. So I've pruned away, about 4 or 5 leaves, 6 leaves, something like that. They were the worst offenders. There is new growth coming through, so that's good to see. So this guy will bounce back. And then the second casualty is this guy, the Nepenthes. So a bit sore about this one because this one was looking really healthy, but I looked at him and he was really dry, and all the traps have gone crispy brown. So these are traps that the plant will catch insects to feed itself nitrogen. So I'm gonna have to prune these off, unfortunately. So the plant is growing new traps at the top here, so it is healthy, but I just left it a bit too long. I think the problem is that because this guy doesn't want tap water, he wants distilled water. That means that I often forget to water him, to be honest, which is a bit of a shame. So I must have left him about 2 weeks, I think. So there's a leaf there as well that needs to come out. A selection of leaves, in fact. Okay, so that's much tidier. As I was pruning that, ironically, there was a few fungus gnats flying around in the soil, so hopefully they're going to get caught by these traps. So I have cut off quite a lot of traps, but there are still, how many are there? There's 3 larger ones, and then there's this smaller one that's just about to open up, and there's 2 more leaves developing. So in a couple of weeks, I'll have a good, I don't know, 6 or 7 traps. They can start catching its bugs again. Okay, for this next one that I'm about to show you, viewer discretion is advised, because I have this ripple jade. Whoops, it's come out of this pot already. This ripple jade that is nice and healthy, but it does tend to lose quite a few leaves. They tend to go a little bit yellow and then drop off, which is probably part of the course, but I don't know, I feel like this guy's a little bit root bound, and when I get him out of his pot and feel his roots, I can feel there's quite a thick mat of roots in there. It's very dry. Even though I watered him last week, this root ball is very dry. Now, I am quite content with the size of the pot and the kind of the size of the plant. So I don't really want to keep upsizing him and keep moving him up to a bigger and bigger pot. So if we don't want to repot into a bigger pot, what do we do? Well, what we do, we get a chopping board like so, with a serrated knife. We grab our plant, put him on his side, and then we cut off about a third or a half. I think I'm going to go for about a third. Cut it off like so. Don't worry, I've not killed him. Plants can be root pruned. So there's a dense, thick mat of roots all around the perimeter here, and then the soil is inside. So he's not able to draw on water and nutrients effectively, which is why we give it a bit of a root prune, and then, so we can pop that to the side, making a mess, as always. So then we can just basically put some fresh soil in the pot for new roots to grow into. So what we're doing, we're basically cutting away tired roots that may be a bit rotten or things like that, a bit fragile because they're a bit old, cutting them away and then allowing the plant to grow fresh, young, vibrant roots into fresh soil. And we'll have a nice healthy plant. In June is the perfect time to do this. So some fresh soil in there. Pop the plant on top, and then it's as if you wouldn't know anything happened. So we can go back into his pot. And then back where he lived. So last month I pruned back this bad boy. This is my rubber tree. So this is actually the oldest plant in my house, I think. It's one of the first plants we ever bought, which is why it's got a nice thick trunk at the bottom. So the aim of the game, as far as I'm concerned, with a rubber tree is to get it as bushy as possible. So the main trunk here, I pruned back last month, and it's given me 3 new growth points. So I've turned 1 into 3, which is great. There's 1 here as well. I previously cut the trunk back and it gave me branches. So I cut that branch. It's given me 3 growth points so far. Just starting to open up. And then over here on this one, I've got 2 growth points. So it's a good idea with rubber plant to prune it as much as possible so it develops into a nice tree-like structure. And that's exactly what I want with this guy. But I did miss a branch here, so I'm going to cut that back live. So it's a good idea to have some kitchen roll handy when you do cut a ficus plant or a rubber tree, because they do bleed that sap, and it is quite if you've got sensitive skin, it is quite sticky, and so it's a good idea to wear gloves. So it does come out really quick. So it's always a game of trying to get the towel in there before it goes all over your floor. So where am I going to cut? I'm going to cut there, turn that upside down, and then put that on there. And it's bleeding everywhere. I can never catch it in time. So basically, that one is going to hopefully develop into 3 new growth points. And this one, what we can do, we can take off the lower leaves, pop that into a glass of water, and it will develop roots into a brand new plant. Now, if you do cut your plant and it only develops 1 stem where you cut it, rather than branching out into 2 or 3, then you can cut it again. It's exactly what I did to this guy here. So this one I pruned back maybe a month and a half ago, and it only started to develop 1 growth point in its place. So I wasn't happy with that, so I cut it again, maybe another inch or so to the next leaf point down, and now it's finally got the message and it's starting to grow free, so that's good. Make sure you download my plant troubleshooting handbook that is linked down below in the description. It goes over all the common problems that you might see with your plants, like yellowing, browning or wilting, why they happen and what you can do about it. And it's all for free, so check it out down below. So now that it's getting much brighter, we just need to be careful and check in on our plants to make sure that they're not struggling. And this bird of paradise is struggling. So a bird of paradise wants as much sun as you can give it, because if you don't give it enough sun, then it won't flower, and that's kind of the aim of the game. So this guy, I've rotated him recently, and you'll notice that the leaves are kind of facing into the room, or leaning into the room, whereas before I rotated him, the leaves were leaning into the window. So this is a southwest facing conservatory, so the brightest spot in my house. So I'm getting lots of sunlight on the leaves. But the problem was that the leaves were pressed up against the window, and the glass was amplifying the light, and we've got burnt leaves, unfortunately. So you just want to be careful. If you've got plants near your windows, just check in on them and just see that the glass isn't amplifying the light too much. Now you can leave these leaves on the plant because they are still photosynthesizing, but they are looking a bit ugly. So I do want to tidy it up, to be honest. So I'm going to prune off the worst offenders. So that one there is definitely the worst offender, very crispy brown. So I'm going to get in there near the base of the plant as much as possible. And the big old chunky leaves, so I'm going to prune it off carefully without cutting any of the other leaves. So that's one, nice big leaf that is. Then there's this one down here that I'm also going to cut off carefully. There we go. And then I'm also going to cut off that leaf there. There. So the plant looks much tidier now. And now that he's facing, I've turned him around, hopefully the leaves are going to straighten up and he's not going to lean so much into the room. So last month in my May tasks video, go check it out if you haven't already, I planted up some coleus seeds into this tray here, and they've all sprouted. Look at that, beautiful. So I think I've got a hell of a lot of plants here. So I think I've got, in each cell, I've got 3 coleus plants, and I've got 12 cells here, so you do the maths. So basically I've got too many plants in here, so what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to pot up 2 of each variety. I've got 4 different varieties in here. Pot 2 of them up for house plants, and then the rest I'm going to put in my garden as an annual. So what I've got a tray here of individual pots. So these are the ones for my house plants. I've got a fork to get those out, and I've got a little chopstick to make holes in my soil to pop the plants in. So what's the best way to do this? Get that tray out of the way. So I find with seedlings, the best way to get them out is with a fork. So let's try that with this one here. Whoops. Okay. That came out reasonably successfully. So I'm going to get them all out, I think, all the ones that I want. And then I'm going to separate them. So the rest of these, I'm going to pot up in my greenhouse so they can go in the garden. And then these ones, so each of these plugs have got 3 plants in or more. So I'm going to hopefully tease these apart very carefully so I don't rip the roots. So there's one right there. Okay, so as usual, I've made a mess on my table, but that's okay. All gets tidied up dead easy. So I've picked the 2 healthiest or the most grown up plantlets. Hopefully I've not damaged the roots too much. They were kind of tangled in a little bit. amongst each other. So I'm going to pop that right there. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 8 pots filled with soil. And now I'm just going to make a hole like so. Take my seedling, pop it in the middle carefully. Press the soil around. A top tip is to handle the seedlings by the leaves and not the stem, because you can break a leaf but you can't really break the main stem. That's curtains for the plant. I'm trying not to bury that leaf. Press it around so it's good contact. And there you have it. That will hopefully grow on to be its best self. So I've got 7 more to do. Okay, so that is those done. I've got an extra one there actually. So they are very delicate. I could have waited a bit longer to grow on a bit more, but because there was 3 or more in each cell, all the roots are growing into each other. So the more it grows on, the harder it is to get the plantlets out. So I'm just going to move that mess to the sides. Next job is just to give these a good water. Okay, so they are a bit floppy in their pots, but that's just because they're very immature, haven't got strong root systems, but they grow dead quick, coleus plants, the roots and the leaves. So I'll pop these somewhere nice and bright, and the roots and the leaves will grow really quickly, and they will start to anchor themselves better in the pot and they won't be so floppy. So I'm just going to do that one there. So I'm going to pop these somewhere nice and bright. And now we come to the philodendron melanocrisis. It's called melanochrysum really, but he's always in crisis, as you can see. Normally the leaves are struggling to unfurl, which it looks like this one at the top is starting to do actually. So that's annoying. But this guy, the main problem here is that he's looking very, very leggy. Very leggy. The gaps in between the nodes where the leaves come out is too big, should be much, much shorter than that. So it's all my fault, really. I do like to blame him, but it is all my fault because the nearest window's there, but there's a wall there, so he's not really getting much sunlight, basically. So what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to cut him back with my trusty pruners, and I might think about moving him somewhere, although I don't really have an ideal spot for him, to be honest. So one to mull over for the next couple of weeks or something. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut him right back here, like so. Getting tangled in this plant here. So I've got a big old piece here. So what you can do, you can propagate this quite easily. Just cut it into individual cuttings where the leaves are and pop them into water and they'll root. But I've already got a couple of these plants and I find them stressful enough, so I think I'll probably just add them to the compost pile. So June is the perfect time to take some cuttings. Now you can take cuttings at any time of year, but if you take them in June, then they'll have the best of summer to grow roots and then develop into a proper plant. So I've got this purple Pelida here that is cascading beautifully down this bamboo shelving unit. And I think it looks so good that I want to do it again. So I'm going to take some cuttings of this plant so that I can grow it elsewhere, maybe above my TV shelving unit that I've got. So I'm going to take some cuttings here. So it's quite long at the moment, so I'm just going to cut it back a little bit basically. So I think I'm going to take that one. So I've taken 5 cuttings. You don't have to worry about the stems that are cut. So what's going to happen is a new growth point is going to emerge and it will look like nothing's ever happened basically. So I'm going to show you what to do with these now. Thankfully, propagating plants in the Tradescantia family, which the purple Pelida is one of the easiest jobs you can do in the plant game. So I've got my cuttings here. So the first thing I'm going to do is just remove a couple of these lower leaves, like so. Do that one. So there's a nice healthy bit of stem with a few leaves at the top, and these are where the roots are going to grow out of each of these leaf nodes where I just pulled the leaves off. So we can pop that there, and I'm going to do the rest of them. Okay, so you don't need to mess around with water or perlite prop boxes or anything like that. Because Tradescantias are so easy to propagate, you can just pop them straight into soil. So I've got my cutting there. The first thing I'm going to do, actually, I've got a pot full of soil here. I'm just going to wet it a little bit, just to make it easy to pop the cuttings into the pots. If it's really dry soil, then they tend to flop about all over the place. Like so. And then you can make a little hole in the soil and pop your cuttings in. Dead easy. Okay, so you want your pot to be relatively full, which is why I've gone for 5 cuttings. I've gone for quite a large pot because this will grow very quickly, and that's the pot it's going to stay in for the rest of its life, more or less. So you can just keep going with this. Once these grow out, you can propagate the tops of them and put them back into the pot so you have an extra bushy plant. So I've got a pot all ready for him, like so. Already looks quite pretty, doesn't he? It's going to get even better. So I'm going to pop that on that shelf above my TV. In a previous tasks video, I think it was April or May, I took some cuttings of a very tricky plant to propagate, the Peperomia watermelon. So I took little leaf cuttings, including the petiole, and popped them into the soil, and also took some half leaf cuttings and just nestled them in the soil. And it looks like they're all successful. Lots of new leaves poking out of the soil line, so that's good to see. Now in hindsight, what I would do differently next time is maybe keep 1 cutting per pot, because it's getting a little bit too crowded in here. The old leaves that I used to propagate are kind of getting in the way of the leaves that are wanting to sprout through. So what I think I'll probably end up doing is cutting away the leaves once they are kind of done kind of rooting in here, cut them away so that the new leaves can start sprouting through properly. Now I'm starting to love semi-hydro more and more because I'm seeing fantastic results with my plants, especially my spider plants. My spider plant absolutely loves semi-hydro, but there is a right way and a wrong way to do it. So this guy, this is my Ficus elastica ruby, very nice plant. Recently cut it here and it's now branching out into two branches. But this guy is living in semi-hydro, but it's perlite. And I'm not a fan. I've been experimenting with perlite as semi-hydro and it tends to go a bit too mushy. So I'm gonna change it to pon instead. So I do recommend experimenting with semi-hydro yourself, but use pon and leca. I think I prefer pon. I don't know, something about it. The plants seem to respond a bit better in pon than they do in leca, but it's still early days for me, really. So pon is just fancy word for a bunch of stones, basically. That's all there is to it. So I'm going to get this guy out of the pot, and I'm going to get rid of this perlite, hopefully, without destroying all the roots. Okay, so that's most of the perlite out. I've made a mess, perlite everywhere. I'm trying to bang this stuff out of the root ball. It's not all completely gone, but I don't think it matters too much. Right, so I'm going to reuse this pot. But first, I'm going to give it a rinse. Okay, that's a bit better. So, dead easy to repot with semi-hydro. All you do is just, I might just put a base layer in, hold your plant in, and then pour your stones in the pot. Much easier than with soil. And voila! Get my, I don't need this anymore, that ugly tray. Get my pot, do that, and now I've got a can of water here that I've laced with hydroponic fertilizer. It needs to be hydroponic fertilizer because it has the full nutrient profile, whereas fertilizer for soil doesn't have that because it's relying on the natural processes in soil to break down and then to provide those nutrients. I think that's the science behind it anyway. So I'm just going to top that up about a third of the way up the pot, maybe a bit too much in there. Put that somewhere nice and bright and it should be much happier with a much happier root system. This time of year is absolutely perfect to set up new kind of planty projects so they can establish themselves really well over summer and grow on to be their best selves. Now, if you're a long-time subscriber to the channel, then you'll know that I recently moved into this house 6 or 7 months ago, something like that. And in my old house, in my dining room, I had a big old Pothos Devil's Ivy that was growing from a pot and it was growing all around my picture rail in my dining room. So I want to achieve a similar thing here. So again, I've got a Pothos Devil's Ivy down here, and it's already wanting to climb this wall here because it's pressed up right against it and it looks like it wants to attach. But I'm going to help it on its way with a trellis trellis that I'm going to mount on this wall here, like so. So the Pothos Devil's Ivy is going to hopefully start using that as a support, climbing up there. And hopefully it's going to go all the way around this doorway. And I've got a Hoya Lisa just there that's going the other way. And the two will meet and it will look spectacular. So it's going to really green up this area here. So all it needs is a hammer and a nail and a trellis trellis. This orchid finished flowering last year, so I moved him on top of this shelving unit, bit of a propagation station I've got going on in my office here. It's a southwest facing position, so it was getting loads and loads of light and it's recharged its batteries basically, and it's now sent out a fresh flower spike. It looks absolutely beautiful, doesn't it? Love that. Now, a top tip with orchids that are in flower is to move them away from bright light. You don't want them sat in the sun when they're flowering because they don't tend to last as long. So you want to move it to a less bright spot. So that's exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to move it into my living room. Well, that's all for this video. Lots to be getting on with, I'm sure you'll agree. To watch the other videos in this series, click up here and I'll see you there.